Hi everyone, my name is Tyler Bisbee. This is Kinesiology 454 at Cal Baptist University, Behavioral Aspects of Sports. It is October 23rd, finishing up this PowerPoint presentation. Today I'll be talking to you about high school running backs in American football. Huge fan of high school football. Played when I was in high school. I did 3 years out of the four. And as I got into adult life, started getting into teaching, I really enjoyed getting into coaching as well. I like working with the kids. And so we look at physical play, mental fortitude, the love of the sport, and the complexity of the position and of the game. So when it comes to high school running backs, we're looking at running backs that are from freshman level, maybe 13, 14 years old, all the way up to varsity level at the senior level of high school. And they'll be anywhere from 17 to 18 years old. And obviously, as we're coaching running backs at those ages, things do change a little bit from our ninth graders up to our 12th graders. As we're coaching with the ninth graders, how we come in and start teaching our fundamental skills with physical play and mental fortitude is a little different than how we would be handling our frosh soph or our JV teams compared to how we would handle our running backs at the varsity level. Primarily working with ninth graders in the past, I know that it takes a little bit more to get to know these players, get to know what their physical limitations are, how we can strengthen their mind to be ready to play the game. Also, we got to start teaching them as coaches to love the game, because if there's no love for the game, they're not going to make it very far into their football type career. And then, of course, at the ninth grade level, we have the complexity of the position. So we might be starting with fundamental drills, but as we move through the year, we're going to start learning more about how to play the position, how to work the position, how to know the playbook, how to run the playbook. And all of that is what really is my rationale for choosing running backs in American football at the high school level. So there's a lot of environments that can have an effect on our high school athletes, especially high school football players. And these can include our physical environment, the social environment, family culture, as well as a desire to compete and a need for feedback. With our physical environment and our social environment, a high school athlete can have a significant impact on their motivation. This is important because some athletes actually believe that if they play a certain sport, especially football in high school, they'll gain popularity, or maybe they can gain special favors from their coaches that are also teachers, or even teachers in the high school, because they're actually playing the sport. So that's definitely can affect how the player is approaching the game, how the player is approaching their social life versus their life outside of school or in their house or in their family. And according to Barkokis, 2010, previous work has shown that task-involving environments compared with ego-involving ones are associated with more adaptive patterns of motivation, resulting in higher intrinsic motivation, persistence, effort, interest, and participation in a lesson. And that comes from page 168. And if a student does not come from a positive physical environment, they may use these negative attention to go out and try to incorporate a sport to help improve their home life, improve their physical life in one way or another. So sometimes having that negative social or that negative physical environment is going to give the student motivation to either continue to play the game and play as well as they can, or it's going to be detrimental and then bring them down and make it to where they may quit the game or not want to play anymore at all because they don't have anything to help push them to be their best. So here we have our quote from Partridge and Wiggins, 2008, on page 703. In either physical or social environments, the effects of anxiety on sport performance has traditionally been considered to be detrimental. It's important to understand that these kids, these athletes, these 13, 14-year-olds up to 17 or 18 years old, they are trying to impress their peers. And there's a load of stress and anxiety that comes with that, because if they are able to take the game-winning handoff, it's going to change if they were to fumble that game-winning handoff and lose the game, and then have a negative environment or a negative impact on their social life and their physical life. So moving on, we have our other environmental type things that we have to worry about: our family culture, our desire to compete, and the need for feedback. So family culture, super important, and growing up here in Apple Valley, coaching here in Apple Valley, teaching with my wife here in Apple Valley, we've learned that the social economic class that comes from here is not always very good. I actually teach up in Phelan, where the social economic class is even worse than it is here in Apple Valley. And with that said, the way that these athletes approach the game is going to be hugely impacted by their family life, their home life, the culture that they're growing up in. And some of these students, some of these athletes, they have families that are very pro sports, and so they have this anxiety, this stress, and also a motivation to maybe appeal to their father, who is an ex football player or maybe still a football player, that they're trying to just do their best to be the best. And then they have this load of stress and anxiety that comes with that, this environmental family culture that is going to put so much stress and pain on them to be the best that they can be. And when they fail, it's detrimental to their health. Or on the opposite end, where I'm at in Phelan, where I have students who do not have parents in their life, or the parents that they do have are strung out on drugs, or they're adopted, or they're fostered, so they don't have the family culture that's backing them in a sport. And some of these students will actually go out and think, well, maybe if I play and I play good, I can use that motivation to help prove to my family, prove to my parents, prove to my foster parents that I am worth being a part of that family, or that I have this desire to do good so that I get love at home. So they have a lot of stress and anxiety from 13, 14 years old up to 18 years old to impress their family, impress their parents, impress their uncles, their aunts, maybe whatever it may be. And as we look at our desire to compete and this need for feedback is so important for these athletes. It's important that they have coaches that are giving them constructive criticism, especially for running backs who are still learning at the freshman level how to play the game, the fundamental skills to play the game. And so when we have coaching staff that wants to jump all over a student or an athlete for fumbling a football when they've never actually taken a handoff before, or jump all over an athlete for not catching a pass, not having the right block, when we're still learning these fundamental skills. I've had coaching friends that will make these students run miles, run stadium miles, run laps, do push-ups, and some of it does help. But a lot of it comes down to teach them the right way, and when they do it right, make sure that we're praising them and making sure that they know that we're proud of what they're doing, and not always backing it up with some kind of punishment, but also backing it up to know that these kids know that we care and that we want to praise them for doing good. And their desire to compete, that also comes down to their need for feedback. Who wants to keep playing a football game or any kind of game or any kind of exercise program if you don't have the right coaches or mentors in your life to help push you to keep going on? Maybe you don't have the family at home and you need those coaches, or you have your coaches and they're the ones that are going to keep you in the game because you don't have the family at home to get you in the game. And so it's important as us as coaches to be able to come in and understand that we need to be able to praise these kids and give them a reason to keep playing the game. That's important because that gives the kids the motivation to keep playing the game. And by praising the good things that they do, it helps reinforce the punishments that come with the bad things that they do. And what this also does is going to help alleviate stress and anxiety. And that's one of the most important things that we can do as coaches, is to help take some of that burden and that load off of these kids so that when they come out, they can have fun with the game. All right, so moving on, we have our outcome goals versus our performance goals on this slide, and then we'll move into process goals. Our outcome goals are going to be goals that are super important to our running backs, our high school running backs. These goals are going to be long-term goals. They're goals that will really, they're going to be difficult to get to. And there's no guarantee that we're going to actually be able to have our students or our athletes be able to complete these goals. And so while we're looking at this, and I'm trying to get my video into a good place here, a running back, one of our goals is going to be our running back finishing the season with 1,000-yard rushing, as well as no fumbles for the entire season. Is it possible? For sure. Is it hard and difficult to get to? Yes. And when we're looking at this, we need to understand that to be able to succeed, we have to be able to do things that are going to be able to help us with these goals. As far as finishing the yard with 1,000 yards rushing, we need to make sure that our running back is getting his hands on the ball as often as possible. But what does this do? This helps to lead our running back into fatigue and maybe just an overuse of play. So we have to make sure that in the short term, we're working with our student or our athlete in the weight room, working on endurance and strength to make sure that they're able to get to the end of the game and to be able to run the ball as often as possible. And we need to make sure that they're getting the ball and getting the yards that they need to be able to reach this 1,000-yard goal. So to be able to do this, we need to make sure again that we're working in the weight room, working on endurance and strength, and to get the running back as many plays as possible. The no fumbles, of course, with a running back who's running for 1,000 yards rushing, they're going to get the ball a lot. So it's important that while we're in practice, we're working in pads, we're working at full contact, full speed, and we can have drills that we can run to help also prepare our running back for this type of goal. One way that we can work on this is to have our running back each day run through the gauntlet with other running backs or with linebackers or with defensive ends and have them try to strip the running back as he's running through this gauntlet. We're going to be using our rip drill to try to rip the ball out. We're going to try to punch the ball out. We're going to try to force a fumble on that running back. It's also important as a running back coach to make sure that we're teaching our running back the 5 points of touch on the football to make sure that we're guarding that football the best way that we can. For our performance goals, we're looking at improving our running back rushing average. This is going to help with the overall goal. So this will be more of a short-term goal as we play from game to game, working from practice to practice to work on this goal. But this is going to help reach that outcome goal. And we want to improve our running back rushing average during a game, as well as helping our running backs improve their 40-yard dash time. This is important because for athletes, the 40-yard dash is a really key component to understanding how physically fit that the athlete is, as well as getting a speed, an overall speed, an acceleration speed, and just a top end speed. So a 40-yard dash is super important to the sport, especially if we're working from ninth grade freshmen to JV to our senior varsity players. We want to improve that 40-yard dash. According to Gao, speed can be enhanced through improving running mechanics by way of resistive and assistive sprints, acceleration drills, and top-end speed training. We can do this during practice when we're working on conditioning at the end of practice. We can do this during spring ball, during summer ball when we're in the weight room and we're working on our endurance, we're working on our strength. So we want to use these anaerobic type exercises that are going to help build up that endurance to be able to explode off the line, move through our acceleration, and then get to our top speed and hold that top speed all the way through the 40-yard dash. So it's important that we're working these players out by doing our explosive drills like our deadlifts and our hang cleans and our hang snatches. We can also go out and run sprints. We can run our ladder drills with the sprinting. We can do the actual ladders on the ground and have them get their feet work going. So there's a lot of different drills that we can do to help prepare these athletes for the 40-yard dash. And then Gao is going to be referenced at 2006 on page 24 of our textbook. And to improve our running back rushing average during the game, it's important that, again, we're working when we can in full pads at full speed, allowing these players to see the quarterback movement, to see their offensive line movement, to read their offensive line and their blocks, to understand that they don't only need to know their job, they need to know the job of the quarterback and the offensive line so that they know where these openings are going to occur in the line of scrimmage, where these blocks are going to take place, what butt they should come off of when they're making their jump cuts or their speed cuts around these blockers and these defensive players. And this is going to help improve their rushing average each game, and it's going to help with their rushing average on each play. And so it's important that we're practicing this in practice. It's important that they're reading these blocks, and it's important that we as coaches are offering drills to allow them the time to see how these blocks are going to be set up so that they can improve themselves as a player. It's also important to understand that our running backs need to know that this is a team game, and even though they are a fullback or a tailback in that running back position, they have to rely on other players to be able to succeed. So according to Abby 2010, the strength of the team is based upon its interactions with its opponents and how our team is going to adjust to these opponents to be able to give these kids or these running backs the best run possible. So we need to know that this is a team game and that we're going to be working together as a team. And to finish off this slide, I do have a couple GIFs here that I think are good to show kind of what we're looking at with these goals. We have our 40-yard dash from one of our running backs down here, Dry Archer, and he's got a pretty good 40-yard dash speed. We can watch him accelerating, exploding off the line, running all the way through the 40 yards. We have some clips here of Jamal Charles with a nice big run. This is going to help be successful in reaching that 1,000-yard rush, as well as following blocks and understanding how to follow these blocks so that we can also improve our rushing average. It's important that we understand that fumbling the football is a very bad thing in football. And as running backs, when we're getting into our quarterback exchange, which we'll talk about in the next slide, we want to make sure that we're taking that handoff and protecting that ball. Try not to get hit right away so that we don't fumble the ball. And then that will help us succeed in our reaching our no fumbles during the season. And then up here, we're looking at, again, just a nice run by a running back, following his blocks, following his leads, understanding what he's looking for when he's looking for holes so that he can improve his rushing yards. All right, so we're looking at process goals. These process goals, these are going to be goals that we use to improve our running backs or have them set their short-term and long-term goals with our process goals. And with this, we want to improve on the game. And so what can my running back do to improve the game? And so we can do this by improving quarterback to running back handoff exchange, as well as improve running back pass blocking. So down here we have a couple GIFs as we look at this, where we got Jamal Charles with the Kansas City Chiefs picking up a blitz by a Sam or a Mike linebacker, and then realizing that that's going to be the quickest threat to the quarterback, and then neutralizing that threat with a good pass block. Down here we have another clip that's just showing our handoff exchange between the quarterback and the running back. It's important when we take that handoff to make sure that we're taking it the right way, having our arms in the right positioning. We don't want to fumble or bobble the ball. We want to have confidence that the quarterback's going to put it where it needs to be. Our eyes are already looking up and we're taking that football in. So as we're teaching these drills to the kids, it's important to know that to improve our quarterback to running back handoff exchange, to be able to do that and reach that goal, we're going to have practice set up and make sure that every day we have this quarterback to running back handoff exchange. And it's just handing the ball off over and over and over again, and practicing it from the left and practicing it from the right, practicing tosses and pitches. These are all exchanges between the quarterback and the running back, so that the best place to fumble is at practice and not in the game. So we're going to be improving this short-term goal by working this every season, but this can become a long-term goal as we work from season to season. Improving running pass blocking, it's important that we have drills set up in place so that our running back is practicing his pass blocks. Like we see in the GIF below of Jamal Charles taking that block, we want to make sure that we have physical contact. We're running full speed when we can have practices in full pads and working full speed. But it's also important to understand that we need to teach these running backs at the fundamental level how to be able to block and what the penalties are when we block wrong. So there's a lot that we can do to help achieve this goal. I've always been a fan of the saying that the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. And with that said, I think that when we are coaching, like we talked about with environmental factors, we have to be able to praise these kids when we're doing good. But there also needs to be punishments and consequences for when they do something bad, whether it's not paying attention or they are goofing around in practice or at the game, or they're just not doing what they're supposed to do. We've got to be able to lay down the law so that they know when they're doing something wrong, something's going to happen. Some kind of consequence or punishment is going to take place. And when we do that, we start to forge these kids into stronger human beings, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. And when we can mentally and emotionally prepare these kids for real life, that's the most important thing I believe we are doing as coaches, is preparing these kids to be ready for real life when they're no longer playing the sport, but they're going to be dealing with people in retail or dealing with bosses and how to handle those kind of situations. So thinking about the Bible and thinking of Jesus Christ and how we would handle mission statement for this kind of class or for this kind of clientele or position. I think of the iron sharpeneth iron, and so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friends. And this is from Proverbs 27:17. And what I see with this is that we're going to be able to strengthen as coaches, strengthen our athletes, as athletes strengthening other athletes, because they're going to be able to get better through working with each other, through being brutal and hard with each other, and just working through what they're doing. So again, the biggest thing is we want to be using these athletes and let them understand that they're going to learn a lot from us as coaches, but they are really going to learn a lot from playing with their peers, playing with opposite teams. It's going to help them bring out the best. So our mission statement is going to be, work hard in practice, work hard in the game so that you can be the best that you can be. And as we move on, I've learned a lot from this class. It's been a great 8 weeks. It's been hard, and I've learned a lot not only from how to write properly with APA formatting, but also just how to mentor and how to motivate these kids. I find that those are some of the most important things, and understanding the environmental factors that play into these kids' life, the social, the physical aspects, the family culture. Again, teaching in a lower socioeconomical type climate, I've learned to deal with these kids in a different way than I would deal with kids that come from maybe a different side of town where they have their families and they have their parents who coach or their parents who are very involved in their lives. And so for me, it's important from the psychological standpoint to be able to work with these kids, to be a mentor, not to be a friend so much, but to be somebody that they can see stability with, somebody that can be foundation for them to prosper in their life. And of course, learning the right ways to help try to find motivation for these kids. Working with these running backs and working in a lower social economical type climate, sometimes you got to play the coach, sometimes you got to play the father figure, sometimes you got to play the listening ear for the things that they're dealing with in real life that might be taking them out of the game or taking their head out of the game. So being able to learn about those motivations are super important to me, and I really appreciate the time and effort that came in this class to help build me and prepare me for a life as a kinesiologist and as a coach in the future. Thank you for watching, and I hope that this was a good video that has taught you some things. I know that I've learned a lot. And here we're looking at a reference page, so thank you to Abby and Barkukis and Gao and Partridge for being able to be referenced and to help me with this work as I've worked my way through this class. And I hope that you have a blessed week, and thank you for everything.